What's up, everybody? I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our Hurricane Outlook and discussion for today, Sunday, June 5th, 2022. And of course, as we mentioned yesterday, when we talked about potential tropical cyclone one, which was just coming off the Florida Peninsula and moving to the northeast, now that has become Tropical Storm Alex, and a pretty strong tropical storm, more closer to the higher end of the tropical storm category. As I'm as I should remind you that tropical storm runs between 39 and 74 miles per hour. And as of the latest advisory of the 2 p.m. Eastern Time advisory from the National Hurricane Center, Tropical Storm Alex is at 65 miles per hour and a pressure of 991 millibars. But the thing is, it is moving pretty quickly to the east northeast at 23 miles per hour. And as of course, as we did talk about, the conditions over Florida and the eastern Gulf weren't really favorable at all, which is why we didn't see this get going. But still, we had a lot of rain across the Florida Peninsula, and now, of course, that's moved off. And as we saw more favorable conditions develop over the open Atlantic, this ended up finally consolidating and becoming Tropical Storm Alex. And even though this is away from the Florida Peninsula, its impacts are not done yet, because this is going to come pretty close to Bermuda, and they'll have to watch for impacts from this as this comes very close to the island of Bermuda, as it gets slingshot across the northeastern Atlantic, as there's a front that's literally just just to the north of it, and it's causing it to accelerate quite a bit. And because of that, we're seeing this move very quickly. So the impacts to Bermuda will occur, but they'll occur pretty soon, but they won't last long. So that we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Of course, moving east northeast at 23 miles per hour, and this is located at the 30.8 north and 72.5 west. And the hurricane hunters that were in Alex is finding Alex a little bit stronger, and it's been strengthening pretty decently throughout the day. Especially because, as we mentioned, there's a front just to the north of it associated with the jet stream. That's having an impact on Alex, and it's causing it to, I guess, deepen a little bit. And of course, the winds are also strengthening too. It still doesn't look that great on satellite. There's still quite a bit of shear impacting the system, but this is still organized enough that this does have the ability to strengthen. And of course, that's what we're seeing. The latest pressure at 991 millibars, with the central pressure, which you can see is exposed because of the shear, and the convection is being flown off to the northeast of this storm. But at least it's not what how it was over the Gulf of Mexico, where it was so disorganized and it was so broad that we had multiple low pressures on top of the shear, which is why this was not able to consolidate. But now that this has been able to consolidate, we now see that this is a pretty intense storm, um, a pretty intense tropical storm, not an intense storm overall, but pretty intense enough that this will bring some significant impacts to Bermuda. And because of that, there is a tropical storm warning in effect for Bermuda, as tomorrow morning this will pass pretty close to Bermuda, bring some gusty tropical storm force winds, um, and of course some heavy rain as this moves on by. But already by the time we get to tomorrow night, look at where this is already decently past Bermuda. This will be moving pretty quickly. It already is. It's moving at almost 25 miles per hour to the east northeast. So this will be moving on pretty quickly. It'll get past Bermuda, but of course, as it does pass by, expect tropical storm force winds and of course some heavy rain for a decent period of time tomorrow. And of course, the National Hurricane Center says that Alex is forecast to pass near or just north of Bermuda on Monday, and expect tropical storm conditions on the island late tonight and Monday. So, of course, if you're in that area, be careful of tropical storm force winds. But of course, they'll only last through tonight and into tomorrow. By tomorrow night, this will already be out of the Bermuda area, and then by Tuesday morning, this will already be an extratropical system. As once again, that front to the north will kind of absorb this and kind of cause this to fizzle out pretty quickly too. The intensity of Tropical Storm Alex, though, besides now where it is at 65 miles per hour, it is expected to start weakening a little bit from now on. It looks like it might peak out in intensity. Of course, we're at 55 knots, which this is what the chart represents. It represents the wind speeds in knots, and 55 knots, which is what it shows here, is equivalent to 65 miles per hour in our conversion. So basically what that shows it, and that's once again in the upper tier of tropical storm category, getting closer to the category 1 category. Hurricane intensity, but as of right now, it does not look like it will make it to that category just yet, although we'll have to see what the jet stream does to see if this will strengthen it, whether or not it'll strengthen it a little more, but it doesn't seem like it is now. Once again, I did mention it's a little bit sheared, so there might be a little bit of a stopping for this to strengthen way too much, but of course it just depends on if the jet stream has an impact enough that this causes it to strengthen a little bit more. We'll have to see, but either way, this will be a quick-moving storm, and the impacts to Bermuda won't be way too intense. Of course, you cannot undermine the winds and heavy rains that will be impacting Bermuda. So, of course, to stay put throughout tonight into tomorrow as this passed by, and this will be in and out within no time. But other than that, there's not much else to talk about because there's really not that much going on in the tropics besides Alex. But something really important that Eric Webb just tweeted today, and this really is important to what the forecast will be for this year. Eric Webb did just tweet that the European value for the seasonal forecast was just released just recently. He tweeted this today, and he said that the European is a very concerning forecast for the latest seasonal outlook for the Atlantic, and they're forecasting as much as, get this, 225 ACE points, or upwards of 225 ACE points, and it's being forecasted basically, I guess, 1.7 points above the ACE anomaly that's being forecasted for its nearest 10-year period between 2012 and 2021. I guess that's what it's implying, but he says that either way, the European is forecasting 225 ACE of activity, and if you don't know what ACE means, that basically means accumulated tropical cyclone energy. So basically, how much ACE points, how much energy are tropical cyclones outputting with their wind speed in the Atlantic. And the fact that we have the European forecasting 225 ACE, and the reason why that's very significant because once you get above, there's only a handful of seasons in the Atlantic that made it with ACE values above 200 points. There's only a handful out of the 150 years that we've been keeping track of. 150 plus years that we've been keeping track of data in the Atlantic. There's only been a handful of roughly 10, if not even less, seasons that have made it above 200 ACE, and this is the higher end of the European forecast, but still this is probably one of the highest forecasts there have been there. And I guess I'll just look at what the European seasonal forecast for the frequency is, and you can see that for 2022, if you look at the forecast, it's basically been the highest since I'm seeing, hold on, I'm not sure if this is the right map, but I guess both of the maps here. The European seasonal North Atlantic accumulated cyclone energy forecast. If you look at 2022 and you look at what the forecast is, you basically see that it's practically the highest forecast ever that the European is forecasting. And look at what and the last year, I guess we've seen some of the we've seen a forecast like that was a year like '08, that was very active. 1999, that was also very active too, and 2005 as well. That was the last time they forecasted something as high as what we saw this year, and even 2010 as well. And the end result that we got was very active in return, and of course, especially 2005, a very memorable season. The European, that was one of the only times we've seen a European forecast close to what we're forecasting this year. So really, the European is going aggressive, and the European is what's concerning about this too is the European is also very known for being the lesser end of the forecast for hurricane activity, and the fact that it's going very aggressive, at least in my opinion, other people may disagree, but in my opinion, it's very interesting. And of course, the European may be overdoing it when it comes to other stuff. Danny Morris mentioned that the sea surface temperature is a little bit disconnected from the value of what the European is forecasting. But I would say to that, in my opinion, I would give my opinion and say that there's sometimes a little bit of issues that the European has with sea surface temperature forecasting. But Eric Webb did go back and mention somewhere that the connection between active seasons and the correlation with the actual sea surface temperatures. I'm going to have to look at Eric Webb's tweet, but somewhere he said that the correlation with what the European has with the forecast. This is the forecast for the July, August, September period, and he puts all the most recent active years, the most recent very active years, excuse me, and if we look at relations to those, you see one thing, and it's that both is that all those years that we had real high activity, and you compare that to what the European is forecasting for this year. He mentions that the relative that the forecast SSTA and the tropical Atlantic aren't high as the analogs, but the relative distribution is correct, which matters more for tropical Atlantic stability and the local Hadley cell. And of course, what he's basically saying here is how the SSTs are structured in the Atlantic really depends on where the rising motion will be and where the favorability will be for tropical development. And the fact that the European does forecast that to really line up pretty decently with the most active years, it's very concerning, and it's certainly something we'll watch. And of course, even as the season's starting, and even that we're away from the off season, we're still not to the peak yet, so we still can take a look at pieces of the puzzle, look at little small bits of information that we can see to kind of forecast what the peak of the season, when we'll have the most hurricanes, what that might be like, because we still have time to see what will happen there long range wise before it actually starts happening itself. But that in itself is a very concerning sign, and we'll definitely have to see how the season pans out. And of course, my forecast, if you saw several days ago, my forecast was for 25 named storms. Could it pan out? We'll have to see, of course. But with that being said, there's nothing else much to talk about with Alex. Those in Bermuda need to watch out for impacts tonight, as this will pass by. But by the time we get to Tuesday, this will be an extratropical system, and in the history books, basically, as it drifts away into the northeastern Atlantic, as it gets absorbed by the front. And after that, nothing else in the short term is looking likely to develop. But I did see, as I said yesterday, there are hints of something possibly developing in the long term that we need to watch. But that gets much closer to mid-June and very far out, and things could still change by the time we get to that. But other than that, everybody stay safe. If you like what you saw today, please subscribe and like the video. It really helps me grow, and share the video to people that you know too. Let's get our channel growing, and let's really try to be on top of the tropics this year, as I do promise I will try to, especially the last few years that I really haven't been able to. But this year I'll try my best, and hopefully we'll be able to do it. Stay safe, peace, love, and kindness, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Bye.